Start recording. Alright. So today what we're gonna do, let's see. So last lesson, this Tuesday only. So we did the creation of the taxi pickup data and basic authentication, and pagination without the pagination object. Okay, so what I mean by the pagination object in this case is what you have in the last lesson we do postman call, you only get the list of pickups. Okay, so you don't have actually like a next and previous, or it doesn't tell you how many total records are there, so that you can at least estimate the paging interface. And normally your Android app, if you do have some paging interface, what normally you have would be like a user control to let them click the next page, previous page, and sometimes even skip pages. Like you can see, oh, there are 10 pages now, I can skip maybe to 10. So because of those user interfaces, it also impacts how you create the pagination object. Okay, so you can see from my notepad, number 1, 2, we had covered that the last round. Number 3 is like half of it, so we need just a 3.1. Okay, so now we have a 3.2, which is the pagination object. So the pagination object simply is a additional class that I'm going to create in TaxiSG project here. Okay, so currently what I have the app database. Okay, so where will I put this pagination object? Well, we'll probably put it together with the models package here, where you have pickup, taxi, and user. So since let's look at our pickup data store, that was where we had the last query. Okay, so this is, yes, so we had a get pickups, yep, with page and page size. So here this data store returns just a list of pickups and nothing else. So what are we missing from the pagination? So here I'm gonna write a draft JSON object, how a pagination object looks like most of the time. So it will be returned as a single object with the data attribute, which will contain your list of pickup data, right? You can call it data or you can call it pickups, up to you. You might also review the total records. Oh, I dropped out. Okay. Yeah, can't drop out there. Okay, hold on. Go back to screen share. Okay, so yep. So where was I? Taxi pickup object. So I'm gonna write a draft JSON representation of the taxi pickup pagination object. So let's say my interface requires me to show the specific pages that the user can jump to. So I'm going to have total records. So let's say interface. Oh, sorry, Hank, can you mute your side? Can you mute your side? Will be good actually. Either mute your mute your speaker. Not mute your speaker, but if you have headphones or earpiece, it'll be actually easier. You won't get audio feedback. So when someone talks, it doesn't echo in across. Okay. Okay. So back to here, I have my pagination object. So that is the first property. I call it the data. The data would contain the list of pickup data that will return as a list. There'll be a total records, which might return me the number of pickups to be retrieved for this query. I might also have total pages. So in this case, maybe it's 3, depending on the page size. And of course, I have a next, which is a URL, and a previous which is a URL. You can actually further expand this by adding specific URLs for each page. So if you were to add in the ability for the client to choose specific pages or skip to pages, you can add this pages property, and that will be an array. Okay, so in an array here, basically you can have like so here will be an object. The object can have the page number, say 1, and the URL, and so on and so forth. So here is like a very more expanded version of a pagination object that gives a lot of information, like how many records are there, how many pages are there. Of course, if you give back the pages object, you can actually skip this total pages of property. Then there's also the basic, next, and previous. So this is a very ideal, fully featured pagination object. So how do we create this, and what are the steps to generate this thing? So go back to Eclipse. In Eclipse, we know that data store method from pickup data store returns the list and doesn't create that object. So somewhere along the line, we need to create it. So one place you could create this is within the interface itself under the pickup resource. So pickup data store gives me, the taxi resource, which gives me the pickup for a taxi that has the page and page size. So before I return this data pickups back to the client application that's calling this endpoint, I can actually sort of massage it by adding the instance of the new object, pagination object, and then constructing all the rest of the information. So what am I missing here? So here I have pickups, which is just a list of pickups based on page number starting from 1 and the page size. I am missing the total records from the database. And if I want to have pages, I'll need to have a list of page URLs. So let's say if I'm gonna just be simple and do example this. Okay, so this is the simplest way. I do need to make one more query to the database to get this total records. Okay, and probably calculate the total pages from there. So how do I get total records in terms of total number of pickups for a particular taxi? So that comes back to pickup data store. So within the pickup data store, therefore I need one more method. Okay, so I'll call this method count. So the count would actually return me total number of pickups for a taxi ID. So I say get count by taxi ID, right? And I'll pass in the taxi ID here. Okay. And of course, simple to just copy the connection object over with a try and catch error. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is this get count by taxi ID will return me total number of pickup for a taxi. Let's see. So initialize the variable to 0 at the beginning, return that count. So that this count variable will be assign the value of the result. So I need to write the SQL statement in this place. So I start off with a prepared statement. Technically, actually, maybe not. Okay, so here I can either execute a query by using a prepared statement, okay, or should we this case in some queries, right? Let's say in some queries you have no parameters, then there's actually no need to create a prepared statement. Okay, but in this case I do have a parameter called taxi ID, so I will still use that. So here's a prepared statement. So actually what I'm doing is pretty much similar to, let's see, I think I do have a count data somewhere. Yep. So notice this line that I'm highlighting here. Okay, this is actually the same query to return me the total count. So I'm just gonna pull out and copy up there. So this part of the statement that returns me the total count of the taxis. Okay. So assign it to count. Alright. Okay. So this now get count by taxi ID will give me a total number of taxis from the DB. I could also do other things here. So get count, I have get count, which satisfy this total records. How do I get total pages? Okay, so going back to my taxi resource, here somewhere I need to calculate the total pages based on the page size and the page size that I want to retrieve by. So we just get count. So get count of pickups. So here's pickup data store get count. So if the IntelliSense works, it would just get count by taxi ID, pass in the taxi ID here, right? And then you have pickups here. So the next variable I need to calculate will be total pages. Okay, initialize to 0 first. Okay, so now I have this, I need to calculate this. So total pages, okay, how do you calculate total pages? Basically, you can actually do a pickup count divided by the page size, right? So this whole thing will need to do a math ceiling. Okay, so I'm passing pickup count divided by page size into math ceiling, and I'm going to need to cast it as an integer. Okay. Count small u, right? Okay, so this will give me total pages. So going back to the object, now I have the data, which is a list of pickups. I have total records, which is the pickup count. Total pages are calculated that. I need to generate a next and previous. So here, I just say create a string variable, call it next, right? Another one called previous. So how I'm going to construct next and previous will be, first of all, what's my API? So the application starts from taxi SG, right? So that's where the path begins. So in the next and previous, you do not need to include your host name. So we're assuming that, okay, we're simply saying that, okay, now whatever the host name is, you just take this path, append to the host name. So host name in this case, let's say if my host name happens to be this, okay, app. So let's say this is my host, and the path is this. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm only returning this part of the URL. I don't need to include the host. Reason being, if you were to switch to a host to another location, the domain name or IP address is still usable. So here I'm gonna start the next and previous URL construction. So I start taxi SG, and because I'm in the taxi resource, it will point back to here. So what is the next and previous? Basically, they are endpoints to call back this method. Okay, so when I return a list of pickups, I give a next URL and a previous URL. When they can use the Android app, okay, your Android app or any client to call that, and it gets data from this method here. So how does the system know? So currently, how do I call this taxi pickup? Let's go to my Postman. Okay, so in my Postman, I'm going to open up. Okay, so this is my update, right? Okay, so this is my URL for doing a get taxis at page 1, page size 2. So my next and previous will give the user or the client something like this URL, except some parameters will be different. For example, namely the page number will be different. So the page number will change depending whether it's a next or previous. Okay. So here I'm back to here, taxi sg / taxis. So here slash taxis, I need to append or insert the ID of taxi. So I just add the concatenate the taxi ID into a string slash pickup. Okay. And then here I add the page number. So question here is, what is the next page, right? So I need to have a next page variable. Okay, plus. And so what you see I'm doing here is I'm reconstructing the query string part of the endpoint call. So as you can see, I'm typing. You notice that I'm actually duplicating the parameters from the method back in here. For example, page size. Since I'm not changing it in the next page, I'll just reuse it again. Taxi ID. Okay, from here I'm reusing again. The thing that changes here is the page number. So if I'm on page 1, my next will be a page 2. But that also means my previous is nothing, right? So let me remove this one here. So how do I get next page, right? So I have, let me separate lines, pickup count, I have total pages, I need to have a next page number. And eventually I also need to have a previous page number. So how do you determine next page? Is basically from total pages. So my next page, so I initialize this to 1 first. Okay. So if I check if the current page is less than total pages, okay, next page will be equal to page plus 1, right? Because there's one more page to go. Okay. However, if I'm at the last page, page is equal to total pages. Let's say there are only 3 pages and my page passing is 3. There's no next page, right? Okay. Then for the previous page, let me make the calculation. So for previous page, how do I know if there's a previous page? As long as I'm not on the first page. So if page is more than 1, previous page is equal to page minus 1. Okay. So that's settles my next page and previous page. Okay. So when do I need to initialize the strings to an empty or something? Okay. So okay, let me reorganize the code. So back to here, I'll need to, so properly doing this, I need to declare string next and string previous together with the other variables. And then within this site, if page is less than total pages, I'll set next to be equal to the next page. Okay, I only set the string after I calculated my next page value. Okay, and then I do the same thing for my previous. So you can just copy this thing, this line, paste down to the page more than 1, change the next to previous, and this next page in here should be previous page. So the idea is, if I'm on the first page, what happens? So let's step through the code. Page is equal to 1, and there are some records and page size equal to 2 or 3. Okay, so we calculate pickup, total number of pickup, total pages, and you check, oh, my page is less than total pages, assuming let's say there are 3 pages. It will run this statement, plus 1, and you create the next with this string value. Now, I happen to be at page equal 1, which means this statement will evaluate to a false, and you will not do previous page. In either way, set the previous value string to this text. So finally, what I need to do is to return a custom object that has these 5 elements. So there are a few ways of doing this. So if you could create a sometimes we call a dynamic variable, you can actually immediately assign it. You don't need to create a class, or you can actually create a pagination class here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to taxi models, I'm going to create a pagination class. So under Java class, create new Java class in taxi SG models. The name, so I call this pagination, right? Okay. So in pagination, I'm going to follow the structure I have in here. So public. So in the data, it will basically be an array list. Okay. Let's see. I'll try not to have it strongly typed yet. Okay. So an array list of objects. Then total records. Okay, total records would be integer. Total pages integer. My next and my previous. So here's my pagination object. Okay, should be parameterized. Right. Let's try object. See what happens. Taxi resource. Okay, so I have that pagination object. So what I have to do is create instance of a pagination result, a pagination object. Okay. And start assigning the values. So data will be equal to pickups. Okay. So I need to cast this as an array list of object. See what happens if I do that. No, can't cast it. Okay. Just leave it as an array list, generically speaking. Don't change that. So pagination total records. Okay, we'll get my value from pickup count. Pagination total pages. I'll get it from the total pages variable. Next, we'll get it from the next string, and previous from the previous string. Right. Okay. So for okay, spelled wrongly. So this is my pagination object, and okay. So I return this. So in fact, when I do that, then I can probably comment off this generate entity list pickup. Right. So let's publish and see what happens. Okay, so far, you have any questions? Okay, started. So let's check out what happens when we call get page here. Oh, what happened? Can I access? Okay, right. There's probably something I didn't do. It's complaining that this resource should have an annotation. So has anyone seen my last announcement on the blackboard? Okay, regarding the authentication issue. Okay, so alright, so I have a permit all, so I need to have a permit all annotation here to allow the methods to be accessible by anyone. Okay, let me take this one. Okay, so I'll allow a permit all. Okay, publish again. So skipping pages. Okay. Yeah. So I need to add the data in. Okay. So let's go through this first. Right. So here I'm doing a get text CSG. Let's see what I get. Pick up page 1, page size 2. Whoa, no, nothing interesting. Am I missing data? Okay. Just to be sure, let's look at the data. Oh, yes, that's because my database is not turned on. That's why. Okay. Okay, the way that my database runs is a bit different from you guys because I'm running on a WAMP server. It's got other stuff on it. Okay. Now database is turned on already, so I should have data now. Yeah. Yay. Okay. So I'm calling pick up page equal 1, page size 2. So I have here data, which is page size of 2 records at a time. Total records, there are 8. Total pages, there are 4, and it gives me a next. So next here, actually, if I were to follow the URL, okay, so if you click on that, I think what happens is that in Postman will generate the URL again in a new tab. Okay, where was I? So this is my first tab where I say get page 1. Here I'm going to skip to page 2 by clicking on the next. It generates one tab for me. With page 2, I can click send. Yep. So I'm at page 2. There's data. So the page 2, you notice as a previous now. Okay. So in Postman it's quite easy. It helps you to navigate the links by allowing you to click on the links and generates a tab to make the API call. So this is a simple way of doing this. Okay. So in terms of let's say how to skip pages, so the full featured version of this thing, right, is the one that contains pages, right? So I have a page list. How do I generate this page list? Oh, okay. So from this example, how do I build that up? I technically right now don't need to call the database to get more data. I just use whatever I have here. Why? Because in order to generate the list of pages, I just need to know what page to start and what page to end. Okay. So in my object for this, so it's a simple page object with page number and a URL. So if I can do a simple Java class here, so I'll create just a Java class for that called page. So the page would have only two properties. If you do this often, you'll realize that you can actually simplify a bit more. Like for example, page number may not necessarily need to be there. Okay, but since we're starting from 1, so it's more organized this way. So here I have everything in taxi resource. I have the pickup count. I do the calculation. I create the next and previous. So in my pagination class, I need to modify to allow it to have an array of pages. So I go to pagination. So after the total pages, what I'll do is I will create one more array list. Okay, from page object. So here I got pages. Now back to taxi resource. So to generate the list of pages, we're going to use a loop. So you can do either a for loop, okay, for p equal to 1, constraint from 1, page and p less than total pages. So the for loop will be using a p as an integer variable that will actually be substituted into the URL. So before that, we create an array list of page. So there are a few ways you can do this. One is you can initialize this this array list before the pagination or during the pagination creation. So I'm going to do it before. So here's an array list of pages. I iterate a value p from 1 to total pages. Okay, equal because I'm starting from 1. So pages would need to add, right? So I'll insert a new page object. So I'll create every time I do go through the loop once, I'll instance a new page object and assign the value. So page number will go to p, page URL equals to taxi sg, taxis. We use the parameter passed into this method. Pickup page is equal to, I use p instead of anything else, plus and page size is equal to page size. So this will construct the object that I need. Oh, page. Why do I have a duplicate? Okay. Page object. Okay. So in the pagination object, I just need to assign the pages to pages. Right. That's done. So this is how I'll construct you can construct the page list so that the user can skip pages in the application. So now publish. Okay. Postman +1. New call. So now here you have, so in my Postman I have everything else that I need, but also have now pages, pages list. So this pages list will tell me, oh, page 1, get data with this URL, page 2, this data from this other URL. So this is how you create the pages. So in your Android app or your client, if it has a page skipping feature, it can then tap on this page list to generate the UI for the user to skip pages. So they can see actually all the pages available in the application. Okay, so this is how you do pagination. So next, update taxi information. Okay, should be very easy, right? Before I go on, open the floor for questions. You wanna turn on your mic now? So any questions before I continue? Okay, anyone else? If no, going once, going twice. Okay, so alright, so I'll continue. Updating taxi. So far we have the taxi data store. We have a creation of taxi, right? So by right in the future you will retrieve all, retrieve by ID, and now need update. So in update taxi, what do we need to pass in update taxi? So okay, so there are some ways of doing this. The most simple way is to pass the entire taxi object into the update method in the data store. We should have an update method here. That's the most simple way. In some cases, it's not necessarily the best way because you may be passing unnecessary information. Like, for example, let's see, what could we be sending over? So in the taxi object, well, let's look at the taxi object. What does it contain? So in our taxi table, okay, so we have ID, license plate, driver name, registered date, and car model. So things that we want to modify, let's say we only allow license plate, driver name, and car model to be changed. Okay, like registered date remains as the time it was registered into the system. So you don't necessarily need to to send something at all 5 parameters over. So essentially what you need is the ID, the identifier to identify which taxi record in the database to update, followed by the license plate, driver name, and the car model. So let's say I want to only allow the user to update those 3 fields. Okay. So this is a method that's a little bit more, maybe a bit more tedious, but it does have some form of organization. So why do I want to exclude certain fields is I don't want the user or the developer on the other side to be confused with what that they think need to send other information, but actually those information are not used at all, not important. So this is the reason why I only create another Java class is that I want to make it very clear to the other side, the developers, that I only want to accept these following fields, nothing else. So that tends to reduce some kind of misunderstanding. Okay, I think I have someone want to join. Text on. Okay. Let me add him to the chat. Great. How do I add him? Okay, here. Text. Okay. Okay, text is in. Right, so here. So I'll create update taxi model. So the reason why I'm doing this a bit differently, because I want to reduce some miscommunication with the developer who's going to use my API. Also need to reduce the amount of information to send over. So update taxi model will actually be very similar to my taxi Java here. Okay. But we'll have what? So I just copy everything over first, then I will delete off the stuff I don't need. Okay, so I'm now going to update the register date, take that out. Okay, I'll take out the ID from here. So the reason why I'm going to leave these three properties is because this is purely for the client side to send a JSON in this structure and nothing else. So I now go to my taxi data store. So in my update method, I'm going to be very restrictive by saying I will let the parameters be sent one by one over. So I have taxi ID, string the license plate. Okay. So the string for the driver name, another string for the car model. Okay. So these are the parameters I need. What I would continue to set up would be the prepared statement, of course. So if I'm really lazy, I'm going to pull out this thing. So you realize there's a lot of copy and pasting in coding. So try catch is such a common thing to do because of if statement. Okay. So because I'm not returning anything from the method, there's no need to bother to set up any object to return. The key thing here is basically what happens after the prepared statement. So in the SQL, I'm not doing an insert, I'm not doing an update. So I'm doing an update taxi, I'm updating the license plate, driver name, not registered date, car model. Now how do you write the update statement? It's different from the insert statement. So when I update a taxi, I update taxi I use this keyword called set license plate to be equal to a parameter, driver name to be equal to a parameter, car model and a parameter. Now I need a condition because I'm only updating one taxi. Put in where taxi ID. I think it's a big one. Am I correct? Oh, ID. It's just ID. ID equals to the next parameter. Now I don't need the generator key, so this will be the statement. Since I have now 4 parameters, I need to set up the parameters by using the set methods. So set integer for taxi ID, statement set string, second parameter for the license plate. So if you have a lot of columns to set, this can be quite boring. Set string 4 is the car model and statement set. I think that's it. Yeah. Oh wait, it's not right. Taxi ID should be the last one. Okay. License plate is the first parameter by order of appearance, like movie credits. Taxi is the fourth parameter. Okay. So when you're doing stuff like this with the question mark parameters, please take note of the order of appearance of your parameters. Yeah. Okay. So after which, because this is a update statement, I will do execute update. Here's my delete method. Now, so I have my taxi data store has a update method. Time to go to the taxi resource and look for my respective update taxi. So prior to this, we actually try to create a update taxi method with that is restricted to the user and admin role. Okay, so maybe now let's complete this. So I would have my taxi store, right? So I need to do a update taxi. Now here, so I put in the ID. Where does the ID come from? From the path parameter. Okay, that's your ID for taxi, right? Because your update taxi is gonna look like this. So this is what you're gonna send through to the update method. Taxi ID, the ID of the taxi identifiable by the path parameter, and 3 properties here that you will update. Back to the method. So because I'm going to expect a taxi object, previously I was using the whole taxi object. So now that I don't need to, I'll just use the update taxi model object instead. Okay. So complete is not there because it is imported. So next thing I do is to extract the various parameters to send them into my taxi store update. Done. Okay. So here's my update taxi method. So roles allowed, user admin. Yep. So let's publish that. Now, so I'll go back to my Postman. So in Postman, update taxi method, how remember it's a put. Okay. I'm calling taxi resource 1. I'm passing into body, which is the application JSON. Remember to set that. And then I craft my JSON in here. Okay. And since this method has required a role of either a user or admin, okay, so make sure I have my authorization entered correctly. Click on preview request so that headers will contain this thing called authorization value. Okay. So by now it should be done. So I can finally send this update method. So I'm going to replace taxi1 number 1 with changing the driver name. And yeah. Okay. So I'm going to send a got unauthorized. Have I? username, user and password. User and password. Let's take a look. Check database. Okay. User 1 and password. Row user. Right. That's correct. Getting unauthorized. Unauthorized. So how do I find out? Unauthorized comes from here. If authorization is empty, header or null. So it complains that the authorization here is empty. Interesting. Shouldn't be the case, right? Why else will we show this? Is user allowed? Okay, so here probably it didn't work. So username, password. So I will say if user exists, let's go to this method. Username, password, rows in, string join, SQL query. Set string 3 rows. Run this in debug mode. Okay, so I'm going to add a breakpoint basically in here. Okay, so the breakpoint I'm gonna insert it when the method starts. Okay, then I'm gonna call, so I can step through and see exactly what's gone wrong. Now, so do a send with the in debugging mode. Okay, so I'm here. I step over. So get connection, no problem. Select star, username, password. So user 1, password is password. Create the rows. Take a look at the rows here. Is it admin/user? Okay. Set string to 3. Right. Execute the result. Okay. Now, next result is false. So what happened here is that next is empty. Okay. Let's try this statement in here. So say user 1, password, rows in, min, wait. Okay, I show something. So I'm gonna miss something out. Yeah, okay, I know what happened. Okay, so there's a problem here. What is the bug here? So let me do that again. So the way that this string here was constructed to return the list of rows to match. Okay, so look at this, right? So what's the value here? So notice the value is admin's comma user, which means in the question mark, when I substitute this with the value, it will look like this. If I run this, of course nothing matches because it's supposed to be each of them supposed to have its own quote, right? So in order to have that, okay, so let me go modify this. That will mean I need to actually do something like modify this. What I need to modify? So what I need to modify here is basically to include this quote over each string. So let's see. Row string. Need to do this before that. Okay, so let me pull this out. So the loop will need to run over the rows. Okay, to array. Okay. So when I convert the rows, which is actually a set, to an array, okay, I need to iterate through the array and change it by adding the single quotes around it. Okay, so this line will add the single quote around the value, and thereafter I do a join. Okay, so let's try see if that works or not. Okay, publish. So what am I doing there is I need the query to look like this, especially the rows part, where there's a single quote that wraps the name of the row. Because just now what happened was that it was a single quote that wrapped the value of the concatenated string, the joined strings with the comma. So it needs to look like this, then it will work. Okay, so run, synchronize. Let's do a send, or rather continue. Okay, do a send. Okay, so we're gonna step through and make sure that the value of row string it looks correct. Okay, so let's look at it. Now this looks more like it. So around every row name there is a single quote. So this should work in the SQL query. Hopefully, does it? Oh, no, it doesn't. Still didn't. Okay. So I still have one more trick up my sleeve on this one. So how do I deal with this thing? so I'm gonna try to manually append this in here. Let's see what happens. Keep that there. Okay, no more variable for that. Okay, so let's try one more time. To send. Okay, breakpoint. So I want to make sure that it goes into here. Next. Yes, it works. Okay, so it seems it works. I've updated taxi1 to driver name and car model. Let's take a look at the database. So right click taxi, select rows. Do I have anything updated? No, don't have. Okay, so for sure I know that the authentication has passed, but the statement isn't updated. Okay, so where I went wrong? Taxi resources, update taxi. Okay, so I should have all these values here. If I go to the taxi data store, check the update method. Was there a SQL error? Check console. Yes, there was. So look at these lines. So duplicate entry for unique. Okay. So what happened? I was trying to change the license plate number to SHA 2001X when it complains that it already exists. So I'm trying to say I'll change this guy to have the same taxi plate as this guy here. Okay, so that's the problem. So let's just update it as it is, 9001. Okay. Do send. So far okay. Yep. Okay, so I managed to successfully update. Okay, so this example you see that you can do the update statement, update API and updating the data in the database, which also you see an example when we have a license plate which is set as a unique column. The database will complain that if you try to update another row with a duplicating license plate. Okay, so that can be also a kind of exception that you can return back to the client and say, hey, the license plate you're trying to update, it actually already exists. You're not supposed to have a duplicate license plate. So that's the update taxi method. So next one, moving along, remove taxi. So remove taxi would probably be one of the easiest to do. Okay, simply because in the taxi data store, this is one of the simplest statements to run. So in the remove taxi, what do I need? I only need the taxi ID. Okay, so taxi ID parameter in the, so we go to the taxi data store class, look for the delete method. Okay, so there's taxi ID there. I need to add it in as a parameter. As for the rest of the statement, I'm gonna shamelessly copy from my update statement. Okay, and I just remove things I don't need. Because first I need to change the statement to delete from taxi where ID is equals to parameter. So one parameter, which is taxi ID, in my statement I will choose to delete all the rest. I keep the set integer parameter index 1 and then pass the taxi ID in here. Okay, so once that is done, I just need to do a execute update, or I can simply just do an execute. Okay. Okay, so let me go to the server, change this back to normal mode. So my taxi, I have a delete. Now I need to hook it up to my web service method. In taxi resource, okay, add one more method for delete taxi. Response delete. Okay, so this will take a path parameter ID from the path. Sorry, need to be an integer. The method itself is called delete. The path defined will contain the ID as delete will be capital. I think yes. Okay. What I'll do is call store delete, pass in the ID, and then return a response. Okay. Build. So this is how simple your delete method will be. Nothing fancy. Okay. Done. Publish. So so in the delete taxi method, what I need to do is, first of all, taxi data store, the database part, make sure you have the method to call this SQL statement where send the taxi ID, and then simply the web services which your endpoint is, create a web service method to handle a delete, and then call the store, the delete method to delete the taxi. So when I haven't put any special permissions on this thing yet, so I just try to see if this works. So I go to Postman. So let's save this new one. Okay. If you know in Postman, if you want to organize a better organization of your endpoints for testing, you can actually use these collections. It's very useful, especially you don't need to retrieve from the history and all that. So in the delete taxi method, remember the method is a delete. HTTP method is delete. The URL itself will be taxi.sg, the resource taxis 1. So because I'm not using any authorization for the moment, okay, it doesn't matter if I leave it there. Actually, in this case for deleting there is no body. Okay, save. So this content type doesn't apply as well, right? So now delete taxi ID number 4, which will be this one. Okay, last record. Sorry, down from 5, 4, yeah, which go SHA1122X. Okay, let's do send. Okay, silently deleted a taxi, and there's got no more ID 4 here. Right, so that is the delete taxi method. Okay, last one will be the get taxi and pickups. Okay, so any questions so far? Everyone okay? Okay, so final method, get taxi and pickup, HATEOAS, hypermedia. So the idea here is if I get a taxi, so I need to first get a taxi method, right? So let's copy this over. So when I get one taxi with ID, currently what does it do? I think that's not found yet, not allowed, okay, or rather not implemented, depending. So I don't have a get taxi method yet. So what idea is, when I get a taxi, it return me the taxi information. Okay, maybe the ID, or don't need ID, which is the license plate. So it has license plate, okay, whichever, and then I'll have a pickups. Okay, so pickups can be a method. So this pickups basically allows your client to tap on the URL to do a get or post. So in this case, so the pickups is a method. So it might look like this. So I just type it out first, describe it. So this is a simple hypermedia link. It's a bit like, basically it's the same like a hyperlink in a web page. I tell the client what method to use to call the following URL, and then just simply the URL pre-populated with any parameters I need to be sent over. In this case, page 1 and page number and page size. So by giving the information about one taxi, I can expose a pickups, okay, that has a method to do this. So then with the user, let's say the user is looking at a pickup data or the taxi data, and he chooses one taxi. You see the detail of taxi, there could be a link, a button to say view pickups. You tap the button, your Android app can invoke this as a next call, simply from the first object of the taxi retrieve. So to have that set up, likely this will be another Java object. Okay. So I'll create another Java object here. I'll create taxi. So to call this the get taxi model. Okay. So the get taxi model will be very similar to the taxi model. I may not want to return the ID in this case. Okay. So I'll just copy the rest of the properties. However, you will have something new. So I'll create a class called method. Okay. This pickups. So the method class, I'll create it in the model again. So the method class would basically emulate what I have here in terms of these attributes. So the method module in the method class will have a string for, so this is called the method, which is the basically HTTP method. Is a get, post, put, delete. Then URL for the string. Okay. So this will be how this will be the object I'll return. Now in my taxi resource, look for a get taxi. Okay. I'll create one get taxi. So here I'll create a public web method get by ID. Okay. You will have a path parameter. So here I'll define the method and the path. Okay. So eventually what this will do is I need to call the taxi data store to retrieve something from the database. Okay, so go to now taxi data store. Now I add one more method. So this data store will return me a taxi object. Get or find by ID. I only need one parameter, which is a taxi ID parameter. And copy the code segment from delete. Okay, but what's different is that before the connection starts, I will declare a taxi return object, set the null, return it at the end of the method. So somewhere in between, I will need to populate this taxi object or instance it. So as for the SQL statement, modify this. So what I do is I'll do a select star from taxi where ID is equal to the question mark. Okay, and then I'll set the integer at parameter next one to taxi ID. Okay, now it won't be using an execute statement because I'm going to get a result set. So what I'll do is I'll create a result set object, and this result set object will be populated by the statement when I call execute query. So just now we've seen execute update. Okay, so when you run a SQL statement that doesn't change data, it's always an execute query. So remember that, right? So the result set, I need to convert it to a taxi object. But before I do that, I need to check, does it have a record? So if result set next is true, then there must be something. So taxi, instance it to a new taxi object. Now return the basically the I'll set the from order appearance license plate. So result set get string from license plate, driver name. Okay, just copy and paste over. I also need the what I have there, car model, and one more, registered date, which is a get date. Okay, so that one. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so if this works, it will give me this data. So coming back to taxi results. So now I have a get taxi model that I want to return instead of get taxi. So let me create an instance of this. Make sure it's imported. Okay. Now this is the part where I find the taxi by ID. It tells me a taxi object. If the taxi object is not equal to null, just to be sure, okay, then I can set the individual properties based on the object. Okay, there can be a few ways to do this. You could create one way is to create a constructor with the get taxi model, and then you pass this in. So it depends on how efficient you want it to be done. Car model. The order of setting the variables here or the properties does not matter. Okay, it can be registered date first, followed by driver name and license plate. Okay, so now I've done the 4 of the basic values. Now the pickups. So pickups will be equal to new method. Okay. So here I'll define the method. Okay. What does the method property store? Okay, so here I have taxis plus ID, pickups, pickup page equal to 1, and page size equals to maybe 2. Okay. This one need to modify this, import this. Okay, so I will return this into the response. Now publish. Okay, so gonna do a call. Ah yes, I missed out something. Because I'm doing authentication, remember to include this annotation, permit all, for all the public methods that don't need authentication. So now, once it's synchronized, so if I call this now in Postman, see, what do I get? Internal server error. Wow. Okay, so there was something in console. So what is wrong? Message body not found for type. Oh, okay. Oh, this is the reason why I need to use a generic entity. Okay. So when you see the message below here, severe message body return not found for media type XML. Okay. So a few things happening here. So first of all, based on the message here, it's assuming that I want to output XML, but actually I'm not. Then the reason why is because here I do not have a producers application JSON. That's why it thinks it needs to be XML. Then it complains that it cannot convert this class to JSON. Okay, let's try. So I added a producers application JSON here, publish. Okay, so now it works. So now when I go do a get taxi with the parameter 1 and the one first taxi, I can choose to go second taxi. Okay, taxi number 5. Okay, so all of them will give me the information I require, and then I have this pickup, so if a URL to get the pickups for this taxi. So if I tap on that link, okay, so Postman will automatically generate the copy the link into a new tab. You can do a send. So this will allow a scenario whereby an Android app is doing a detail of an object, and within the object returned in the endpoint, you can actually include links for the Android to call to say, okay, I want to get more information to go deeper. Let's say in this case, get pickup data. So this will be quite useful in that scenario. So you actually reuse the URL provided from the previous object. So how this helps in your Android programming is that you don't need to store another list of, oh, this is how I get pickups by taxi ID somewhere. So instead, you put in the program, you can say when I get taxis, I know that I will receive this attribute called pickups with a link to get the pickups. So that sort of puts less hard-coded configuration in the Android program. It also allows you to dynamically change this from the web services point of view. So one day, if I want to change this to a v2, v3 of the same method, I can control it from my backend. I don't need to update the Android program to say, oh, now you have to change all your configuration to get pickups by taxi ID to something else. So that way, it's sort of an advantage because you don't need to change the code in Android programming to publish it again. Then therefore, that makes like some upgrades so a little bit easier. Okay, so there you have it. You got your taxi pickup with taxi and pickups. So any questions now or request? I think everyone can tell my mic now. Yes, pagination as HATEOAS is a type, but for the assignment, I'd like to see a bit more like object A going to object B type of links rather than pagination itself. Does it make sense to delete and get taxi based on a number plate or ID? Yes, you can. In fact, there's a very good example of using the information itself of object as a way to identify it uniquely. So for some cases, we use ID generated IDs because there is no proper information about the object that uniquely defines itself. But in some cases, we can. For example, the license plate, because we know that there can never be two cars with the same license plate on the road. So it is very safe to say that that will be the unique identifier. So how do you do that? To use the license plate part of the information as a way to to run all these operations. So generally how we do it is that the ID here, basically, so let's say to modify this program to something that uses the license plate as ID. First of all, the type in the method has to be changed to a string. Okay, that's one thing. And then followed by in the database level in the taxi data store or anywhere else where I'm referring to taxi ID, I need to now refer to the license plate. So that also means that if I do a get taxi by ID, so instead of having one here, it could well be the taxi plate number like this. Okay, so for that to work, a few modifications from the current code, which is to change the IDs to strings, and the reference here, if you're going by where ID is equal to that, you change it to the license plate. So far, does that answer the question? Okay, so if there is nothing else, we'll continue. So the next lesson we'll do mainly the revision. If you have any requests, wish list for coding, what here as a template or some sort you can use. Please put in your request to my email or the discussion board. Okay, just email. So put in request to email or WhatsApp group. Okay, then I can actually maybe show you. Okay, if you want to add some certain features, how do you do it? I can show it to you on the next class. All right, is that cool with everyone? Yes, the file and the video will be uploaded, and I'll release the link on the announcements and also in the WhatsApp chat. Yes, code for this version will also be uploaded.